What could I say after it was done?
In the outer edges of Argentina, there is a city of which everyone knows. It doesn't appear on any government-issued maps, but everyone knows of that odd sibling or cousin who calls it home. Those who have visited tell tales of creatures unknown, the tales of streets upon which the vampires and ogres roam, stories of the people who spend every night afraid in their homes, and anecdotes of the police who sleep peacefully while the populace falls to a ghostly poison. But rest assured, dear viewer, these are nothing but mere rumors. Otherwise, these stories would have never been told. The locals just happen to have a very, very dark sense of humor. But really, they just like to live their rather simple, peaceful lives out in the wilderness unknown. So don't be afraid of the unnamed town off the side of that long, winding country road. Because really, there is nothing to fear about that settlement that lies in the middle of the vast cornfield sea. So feel free to tune into that strange radio show that lies on the city's favorite frequency. And always remember that there are no vampires in Kirlilan.
Walking down a dirt track, rain beat down on my back, searching for a ray.
The Kirlilan Frequency is a strange 13-episode miniseries with only 5 episodes produced as of the making of this video. This show comes to us from the creative minds at Tangerine Scene, a production studio based in Argentina. It was initially released on April 30th, 2017, but an excellent English dub has only just recently become available to international audiences through the power of the streaming service named Netflix. I found it one night while I was browsing the service looking for something new to watch, and I saw this strange, tantalizing thumbnail. So naturally, I clicked on it, and I instantly fell in love with this weird, wonderful show. The series is unlike anything that I've ever seen before, using creative visuals and unusual audio techniques to create a unique experience, the likes of which have never been seen before or may never be seen again. The show is set in the town of Kirlilan, Argentina, an elusive town that is subject to frequent attacks from various abominations and monsters. The town is allegedly so dangerous that even the police do not work at night. Any calls that the police line receives are redirected to the office of FM 96.6. 96.6, also known as the Kirlilan Frequency, is run by a nameless, faceless host enshrouded in shadow. He alone has taken up the duty of keeping the town informed in regards to the strange happenings that keep them awake throughout the night. In this series, this station acts as a sort of framing device upon which all the events of the show occur. It's sort of an anthology series, with the subjects of each episode being the unsettling anecdotes of distressed and desperate callers. Now, it should not come as a surprise to anyone that the Kirlilan Frequency is quite the strange show. In fact, that is essentially its selling point. Of course, this isn't really anything all that groundbreaking. There's tons of media that sells itself on being not what it seems. Even the show's basic concept of a small rural town with frequent, unexplainable supernatural occurrences is getting a little played out at this point. You can see the trope in action in media spanning across a plethora of different mediums. Live action, video games, animation, you name it, it's everywhere. But this show's charm doesn't come from its premise. Here, it all lies within the execution. As I said before, the series entirely revolves around Kirlilan's favorite radio show. Each episode showcases a new story told through the means of an interview between our subject and our lovely host. And when I say that the show centers entirely upon the station, I mean it. If it was not transmitted through the station's airwaves, it might as well not exist. And while this solitary perspective leaves open many opportunities to execute common horror tropes and cliches, the show's creators opt to do something a little more interesting with the series. Perhaps the most notable of the cliches that are often seen in this genre is the one of the unreliable narrator. And rightfully so. This is a great way to instill suspicion in the reader. When our protagonist's account is unreliable or inconsistent, it is hard to decipher the truth, creating an interesting, multi-layered story for the consumer to spend hours mulling over. However, that doesn't happen here. In fact, our narrator is a shockingly reliable and credible source. He doesn't jump through hundreds of logical hoops to make his point. Instead, He's very straightforward and has been in town long enough to be knowledgeable about what he is talking about. Everything he says is unquestionably correct when also given the witness accounts of the events. It all lines up perfectly. The creators opted out of using this trope that fits all too well in this premise because they wanted the unsettling nature of this show to be sold entirely on the aesthetics alone. The series is intended to emulate the experience of listening to a traditional radio talk show. However, because it is being produced as a TV show, that means that the visuals must be incorporated. This creates an interesting problem for the series to overcome. How can you transfer an experience unique to one form of media into another without making the viewer feel like something has been lost in translation? The biggest hoop to jump through in this transition is obviously the layer that is being added. In this case, the visuals need to bend a little in order to keep the experience intact. The visual style on display in the Kirlilan frequency is minimal to say the least. The animation here is very limited, with stilted movements and many shots, if any at all. It gives off this very janky vibe, adding to not only the unnatural nature of this show, but also adding to its authenticity. When listening to a radio show, your mind only fills in the motions that are absolutely necessary in order to understand the story that is being told. We simply do not know of anything else that may have happened. As such, the characters' actions in this show simulate the visuals that you construct within your own mind while listening to the radio. The characters are also designed with this philosophy in mind. Their bodies are entirely pitch black, as if they are enveloped in a sort of shadow. The only ounces of color on their person are localized entirely within their accessories, such as the superintendent's veil, our lovely narrator's glasses, and the professor's facial hair. These only give the bare minimum of detail in order to allow us to identify and distinguish the characters from each other. Nothing more, nothing less, as all things should be. These silhouettes provide a sense of ambiguity to this show. Aside from their defining traits, they could look like anything. They could look like ogres, or spiders, or witches, because their true identity remains a mystery. This plays into the limited descriptions that are given over the radio. When you're on the air, there isn't enough time to give every single little detail, and as such, this feeling has been transcribed into the show. But by far, the thing that really sells this show's style is the sound design. Recall when I said that if it wasn't on the station, it may as well not exist? That wasn't just me over-exaggerating the series' small perspective. You literally cannot hear anything that is not playing directly over the frequency. At any moment during the show, there are only 3 things that you can hear: the host or guest's voice, music, or complete silence. That's it. There's no sound effects and no one who isn't in the call can speak. Sure, you can see those things clearly happening on screen, but you can't hear them. The show uses text to show conversations that are occurring but are not being told on the air, and there's even sequences in which there is only music playing while a major turning point in the episode is going down. This actually happens quite often in the show. It's one of their trademarks. By far, my favorite of these is this scene from the first episode. Have a listen. Oh, that is right, you cannot, because in the scene the show's off the air, we can't hear anything. Luckily, unlike someone just tuning in from their car while driving down the highway, we can clearly see that the host is fighting with a werewolf. I believe that this is what makes the Kirlilan frequency so special. I've truly never seen anything use sound in a way that perfectly complements its visual style and theme and premise than what we see here. Sure, I've seen media that uses sound as a part of its design. It's actually easier to list out all the things that don't do this than the ones that do. It's kind of a given at this point. But at some point, no matter how stylized the piece may be, there is a disconnect between the sound and the product's style. It is eventually somehow tied back to reality. If you see a footstep, you hear a footstep. If you see glass break, you hear glass break, that sort of thing. But here, we don't see anything like that. The series goes above and beyond in executing its style, and there's really nothing else that comes close to doing it this well. Through the self-imposed restrictions put on this series by its creators, it becomes a strange, unique, and otherworldly experience that I hope others can take note of. This show is frankly beautiful. I don't know how else to say it. I've just run out of words that I can use to describe why and how this series is so special. Just watch it and see what it is for yourself. It speaks for itself better than I ever could. Support this series. I hope the series becomes a big, successful, beautiful boy and shows the world its true colors. And that's all I have to say for now. Our night together has come to an end once more. The sunrise is especially beautiful today, wouldn't you agree? Oh, anyways, this is Ally signing off. Good morning, sweet dreams, and don't let the vampires bite.